In today's lesson, we're going to learn 3 freeze frame transitions that you can do inside Premiere Pro. So let's get started. You're going to need 4 videos for these transitions, and in all of them, you want to make sure that your subject is well separated from the background. This will make masking easier. Let's make a sequence from our clips. Place your videos right next to each other and then color code your layers. Once your layers are ready, we're going to begin with our first transition. I'm going to push these to the side so we can focus on one transition at a time. Duplicate your second video by holding down Option or Alt, clicking and dragging it up. Select your duplicate, right-click, Add Frame Hold. This is going to give you a freeze frame that we can just use to make the transition. Once you have your frame hold, you want to get rid of the parts where everything is normal. So you're basically looking for the freeze frame and the original video to play at the same time. So if I hide my freeze frame layer, the bottom layer has the exact same movement. Now hold down Shift on your keyboard and click on this button once, and I can just pull this freeze frame over. Cut the extra bits from the freeze frame, so you should have something like this. It should freeze and then unfreeze without any interruption. So this should look like it's one video, and that's how the transition will take place. If you are one frame off, you're going to ruin the whole thing. So make sure that you check like this so that there isn't any interruptions. If you were a few frames off, just delete this, duplicate again, add frame hold, and then cut the 2 videos on exactly one frame. All right, so this is my freeze frame right now. I'm just going to use my, I'm just going to mask out my subject. So click on this, Effect Controls, Opacity, grab my pen tool, and then I can just draw around my subject. Hit V on your keyboard and make this full screen. If you don't know what your shortcut for this is, just go to Keyboard Shortcuts. So I'm just hitting this key on my keyboard to get this full screen effect. You can change your shortcut right here. All right. Once I have this on full screen, I can have a better view as to where I am masking. So click and drag to make curves and just go around your subject. We are going to be using motion blur for this, but you still want to make sure that it's good enough so that we don't get like white lines around our subject when we do the transition. Once you're done, you should have a cutout of your subject. Click that key again that was for full screen and get back to your original layout. All right, so I have this right now. It's looking good. I'm just going to remove the feather and turn off my first video track so I can check if everything is good. So I'm getting a few of these lines. This is an easy fix with mask expansion. Let's go for -6. And add the tiniest amount of feather. So 5 for feather, -6 for mask expansion. Now you should have a pretty good cutout of your subject. We're just going to nest this, right click, nest. Let's call this subject mask. All right, get rid of this. And now you should have something like this. So before we move forward, play it back. The cutout should appear and then right after the video continues. So there should be no breaks and no complications here. All right, let's add a transform effect right on our subject mask. Now you can animate this any way you like. So you can make it come from below, from the left, the right, not from above because the bottom is connected. So choose your preferred method of animation. I'm just going to bring it from below. So make a keyframe for position, bring it forward, maybe few frames forward. And I can see that this is 5 frames. Count 5 frames back and extend this freeze frame. Go into your nested clip and increase it so that you have more than 5 frames. 10 frames, extend this. Go back to your original sequence, and now you should have 10 seconds of your freeze frame. So now make a keyframe for position at the end of your freeze frame. Go to the beginning and pull it in whichever direction you want. So mine will be from below. Pull it down and you should have something like this. Let's right click on these two. The closer you bring these two, the faster the transition, so play with the speed and see what looks better. Grab both of your keyframes, right click. Let's make it Bezier. So this will come in a lot better and not be stiff. All right, then come down here and enable motion blur. Let's try 200 degrees. If it's too much, we can just reduce from it. All right, I want mine to be a little slower. I'm going to bring it back and just play around with the positioning. All right, let's try 150 so I can see a little bit of my subject when they emerge from below. Cool. So this is the most basic way of a freeze frame transition. It was really easy to do, didn't take that much time. And now moving forward, we're going to just elevate this and add some additional stuff. Now, one thing that you want to do is to set contrast between your video 1 and video 2. So because I have the same subject in different angles, one thing that I can do is to add some sort of color grading or special effect to make this look a little different. Go to the effects panel and I will add maybe a Lumetri preset. Let's take a look. Monochrome. Maybe like make something extreme. And now the transition will stand out a lot better. You can see it stands out better. Once you have your preset, you can actually go in here and fix the amount. There we go. We have the Lumetri color stuff, so we can just work with this and make it either brighter or darker. All right, so this was my first transition. Let's move on to the next one. So the next one will be from this video onto this video. So again, it's the subject. I'm just going to skip to around here so we get a different angle. Let's cut the first bit, and maybe we can start it when he's about to take off his jacket. So once we have this, we're going to repeat what we did. Option or Alt, click and drag right above, go to the beginning of this second video, right click on the duplicate, add frame hold. So you should have like a picture on the top track. Now with this picture, we're going to again mask it out, use mask expansion and feather to make it perfect, and then we can continue with the rest of the effect. So I'm just going to do that real quick and then I'll be right back. So here is my subject. Once I hide my first track, I can see that I'm good to go. So now we want to move back 10 frames again. Hold down Shift, go back twice, bring this over, and cut the area where it interacts with video 2. So again, we have this picture situation, and that's pretty good. So now we're going to repeat what we did, which is to nest this freeze frame. Call it mask subject. Add the transform effect right above and just add that animation. This time I will make them come from the other side. So go to the end of the mask subject layer, position, and then go to the beginning. Pull it towards the right or towards the left. Make sure they are completely out of frame. And of course, enable motion blur. Let's go with 140. So now we have this effect. So now we're going to grab the video again, get one frame of it. So click it, hit this once to get one frame. Cut this frame, duplicate it, and move your mask subject one layer up. Bring this underneath. So stretch this like so. Add frame hold and you should have like a picture of this motion. And this is the same as our subject mask layer. So just extend this as the same length as your mask subject layer. I'm gonna delete this cut we made. So now basically you have one cut, which is the subject alone, one cut, which is everything. So you have the subject and the background. They are both freeze frames. Go to your mask subject nest, into your video, and copy mask 1. Command C or Control C. Go back here and paste it into your new freeze frame. Select opacity, Command V, and now you have two freeze frames, one that has the animation and one that doesn't. The reason why we didn't just duplicate the nest is because the nested layers are connected. So if I alter with the settings in one duplicate, it's going to affect our main layer. So that's why we didn't just duplicate this. So now on this, we're going to invert the mask. So we want the background and not the subject. Background, subject. So that's what we need. On the background layer, I'm going to just nest it first. Call this background or BG. In your effects panel, look for the crop effect and add it on your background layer. Now bring your mask subject right here, and we're just going to move in 5 seconds forward. Bring our transform keyframe here so we get like 5 seconds of the subject just chilling. We can alter this later. Let me just change this to Bezier. All right, so we have our mask subject, has a keyframe for the right side, comes into the middle 5 frames later. All right, now on this second keyframe, we're going to grab the background layer, make a keyframe for top and bottom. So for bottom, we're going to bring it up 50%, which is half of our video. Top will also be 50%. So the background should be hidden. Go forward in time till the end of your transition and turn it back to 0. So you should get this window effect just showing up from behind your subject. Pull these guys a frame forward so we get like a full display before we move on to the rest of the video. So the subject just comes in like this, and then the background shows up. Then the video just continues. All right, looking good. For the background, I'm just gonna add some sort of blur because I'm not a fan of these harsh lines. Directional blur on the background freeze frame. Go to Effect Controls and just blur it as necessary. Change the direction to whichever you prefer. And now we have a better look. Let's do 140. So now we get this effect. Gonna reduce the length a little so it looks a bit more natural. Just a little bit of blur. So this way we can have the background showing up and the subject showing up in a creative way. So this is what we have. You can always alter the keyframes so that the background shows up with the subject, or later. It's really just a matter of moving these keyframes forward or backwards. So this was our second freeze frame transition. Let's look at our third one. Pull in my final video. And now we're just transitioning into this clip. So for our third transition, we have this video. And I'm just going to go in forward until we're closer to the subject. Let's do something like this. Cut it where you want it to start, get rid of the excess bit, then put it next to your first video. So video 2, video 1. Over here, we're going to bring our playhead at the start of video 2, the last video. Get one frame, cut it, and just duplicate. So pull this up by holding down Option or Alt, then clicking and dragging it up. Now on this guy, we're going to right click, add frame hold. Increase this so we get like a picture of our subject. Now we're going to bring this over our last video by going back 10 frames. Bring this backwards so we have our previous video, a picture that lasts for 10 seconds, and then we cut it here to get the rest of our video. Like so. Alright, so we're gonna do something a little different, but of course it begins with the same masking procedure. So I made my mask from the subject with the following mask feather and expansion settings. So now we want to do a simple position keyframing. Go to the end of your freeze frame, add a keyframe for position, go to the beginning and just pull your subject completely out of frame. Since he is on a vehicle, I want to make it look like he's riding in from the left towards the original point. So now we have this zoom effect. Let's make the keyframes bezier. So now we're going to duplicate this freeze frame for as many times as you want, and then offset each one. So we get this clone effect. They all show up in the same position, but we just want to make it offset like this. Go to your top 2 clones and push this back so by the end of this transition, all of the clones are in one place. They're just backwards like this. And if you want to increase this, we can actually go to the first position keyframe and change it from what it was. So maybe push it back even more, and that's going to give us a little space between our subjects. So in the original, we had 1821. Here we can have something more than 1821. So let's go for like 1921. And for the final one, we can go for like -2131. So you're just changing the positioning, and this will give us this clone effect. All right. So now to have the clones stand out, we're going to add like a tint effect onto each one, especially the one in the middle. So add tint to the middle one, map black to like a random color. All right, amount to tint, we can lower this. Let me try like a reddish color maybe. All right, looking good. And we can have the third one, kind of the first one actually, to have like a blue effect, blue color I mean, just to bring this whole thing together. Reduce the amount to 40, just as we did with the first clone. So there we go, we have this effect. So now we have our movement. Let me bring this back, set my in and out points, and we can take a look at a preview. So right now it looks a little awkward because we haven't added blur yet. And we're just going to do that real quick. We can cut the excess bit from clone number 2 and 3 since the keyframes are, well, they end here. I just pulled them back 1 frame so we don't cut out the animation. All right, now nest all of these 3. I'm going to call them clones. And now on the clone layer, we can just add anything really. So it can be like a directional blur, a flicker effect, tint effect, anything you want. So let's start with directional blur. I'm going to add -65 degrees so that the direction matches the movement. So here is the final transition. It was really simple to do, and freeze frames are just a great way to play around with your subject's cutout. Again, this is a really hype transition, so make sure it's relevant to what's happening inside your video. Now that we know some transitions using freeze frames, let's move on to our next lesson.